You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Spring ball week 1 has come to a close. I've got my own takeaways that are not hidden behind a paywall. I'm going to let you guys know everything that I got to witness, all of my personal opinions, my takeaways, any predictions that I might have right now. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. As always, I appreciate you guys for tuning in, especially to our live editions of the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, which will be on Sundays moving forward. 3 o'clock p.m. is the tentative time for now. That may be pushed back a little bit later. That is all dependent right now. If you missed the live, don't worry. Everything is archived. Everything goes up on YouTube so you can rewatch it, and it is uploaded to wherever you're getting your podcast. If that's Spotify, if that's Apple Music, wherever, you can re-listen to this podcast. So don't worry if you miss the lives. For those of you that are in the live right now, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Let's go ahead and have some conversations. Week 1 of spring ball was a ton of fun. First of all, it was just nice to get back out there. Like, there's something about just being on the field and seeing football in front of you and the smell of fresh cut glass and the music getting pumped in the background, even though it was repetitively, we are the champions. You know, it was just nice to get back out there and get to experience all the good things that come with football. And obviously, Arizona State is a program that's trending very far up right now. So it gives us a lot of reasons to get excited about this team and this program and the trajectory that they're going. It also is a team that brings back a ton of players. There are over 50 players from last year's roster that have returned for this upcoming season. They also added a handful of guys to the transfer portal, and they had a decently sized recruiting class too. A lot of very talented football players have been added to this roster, and it is going to provide us with tons of great competition across the board, from wide receiver to tight end to defensive line to the secondary. We have a lot to look forward to, and it's lived up to our expectations so far. As the tight end group, my goodness, they look like they're ready to break out. ASU is going to be tight end you. They are going to have a very good group this year. Tight ends coach Jayden Fortier is recruiting at a ridiculously high rate right now for the program. They look ready to break out. They truly do in every sense of the word. Chamon Metayer is back. Last year, he was the team leader for the tight end position with receptions, yards, and touchdowns. Unfortunately, there wasn't too much competition at all. Marqueston Douglas was really the only other guy, and he had a single reception for the team. Like, there was just not much else that was going on with the team last year when it came to the tight end spot, which was unfortunate because ASU could have really used an underneath guy and a bigger red zone threat for Sam Leavitt, who was still dealing and doing all sorts of great stuff despite not having that big target. And Chamon Metayer caught 5 touchdowns. He should have caught 6, but that's neither here nor there. They just needed more production from the big men. That does not appear like it's going to be the same problem this upcoming season. So again, Metayer is back. That production that you had from the tight end room is back. And then they were very aggressive in adding talent. 4-star AJ Ia. We're going to talk about him a ton on Locked On Sun Devils moving forward. Get ready to hear the name AJ Ia a lot. But 4-star kid comes in. He looks like, I'm not exaggerating, he might be the best tight end on this roster right now. And I'm a big Chamon Metayer fan. But AJ Ia is competing at such a high level at the tight end group, despite the fact that he is a true freshman. And my God, he looks ready. He looks NFL ready. Like, he's big, he's tall, he's fit. I mean, his muscles are as big as my head. It is insane standing next to this 17, 18-year-old kid and just going, you could rip me in half if you wanted to. It's crazy. You've got the tight end, Khamari Anderson, coming in from Kentucky. I didn't know what my expectations were going to be for him. And he might be the number 2 tight end on this team behind Chamon Metayer to start the season if AJ is going to take kind of a backseat role and learn the ropes and everything. And you'd feel pretty good about Anderson being your starting or your number 2 tight end behind Metayer, He is deceptively quick. For someone that's as big as he is, he moves very fast and he moves well. He's fluid. He's shown off some solid hands. I can think of one double catch that he had, but at the end of the day, a catch is a catch. I just wish that a double catch counted for 2 receptions for my fantasy team. But he looks good. He's a big, tall weapon for the team. I would not be surprised if he was tight end 2 by the start of the year. I would not be surprised if he was a primary weapon for this offense, because I do think tight end is going to be much more heavily involved this year, especially with the uncertainty that's going on at receiver. Tight end is a great spot. We also got to talk about Jayden Fortier. Now, he had to redshirt last year as he was dealing with an ACL surgery. He was gone. We were kind of wondering, what's the future hold for him? Is he going to stay at the program? Does he potentially look to transfer because of how deep the tight end room is? And he decides to stay. And I was so happy with Fortier's decision to stay, because when I look at this tight end room, as talented as they are across the board, I truly don't know if there's a single guy as far as just pure talent as a receiver that is as good as Jayden Fortier. And you've got great pass catchers. Chamon Metayer, rock solid and certainly a red zone guy. Khamari Anderson looks really fluid. AJ looks like a complete overall tight end, but Jayden Fortier as a pure receiver looks great. And we saw it in high school, and he looks super comfortable as of right now through the start of training camp. It doesn't look like there's anything slowing him down mentally or physically. He looks incredibly comfortable and confident on the field. And in a tight end room that is going to be incredibly deep and competitive, there's not any room for Fortier to be slowing himself down, at least from a mental aspect, right? If injuries are injuries, you can't overcome those, but he's not injured right now. He is healthy and he looks healthy, and the confidence is there. I cannot emphasize that enough. The biggest thing right now for a young man like Fortier, as he goes into his second season of college football and his first season where he will be able to see the field, is he needs that confidence in himself to know that I can get out there, I can compete, I can play at a high level, and I will find snaps on the field. To the point where I would love to see, depending on how spring goes and depending on fall camp and everything like that, if they can find a way to get Fortier outside on the perimeter and then still have a tight end line up inside like a traditional, like you could possibly find a way to have Chamon Metayer on the field and Jayden Fortier on the field at the same time. And not even as a 2 tight end set. Like, I'm not talking about like 2 guys in line. I'm talking about Metayer's in line and Fortier is like in the slot or something. You can find a role for a player as talented as Fortier in this offense. The tight end room looks great. I'm so excited for them. And again, I think that this is going to be a season where we do see a lot more from the tight end position, because we don't know what's going on with receiver. And we'll talk about receiver in a second. I'm not saying the receiver room is bad by any means. It's just way more of a question mark. Like, yeah, there's a lot of new faces to the tight end room, but we've got an established guy, we've got a veteran transfer, and we've got 2 incredibly talented former 4-star kids that are coming to this room. And quite frankly, when I've looked at the receivers in spring ball compared to the tight ends in spring ball, I'm much more confident with what I have seen out of the tight end position compared to the receiver position. Obviously, Cameron Harpole is still here. They've got James Giggy is looking to take on a bigger role. Like, there is more competition at tight end, but it's truly between those top 3 guys, not including Chamon Metayer, who's a starter until further notice. You are going to be paying attention to some order of Khamari Anderson, AJ and Jayden Fortier. Those are the guys right now. Let's go ahead and take a look at the receiver position now. I think that's a good transition for us. The receiver position, that is another opportunity that is wide open. ASU lost the vast majority of their room from last year. Gone are Troy O'Mary, who entered the transfer portal, Melcon Stovall, Jake Smith, and Xavier Guillory, all of whom expired their eligibility. They are moving on, hopefully to the pros, or hopefully just someplace where they have an opportunity to continue their football career. Maybe that's Arena Football League, or maybe it's the Canadian Football League, or maybe it's the UFL, which is kicking off and Manny Wilkins is playing, and it's so much fun. Dude, if you remember Run Manny Run, go ahead and tune. I think he's with the St. Louis Battlehawks or something like that. And he was making plays the other night. I was seeing some highlights and I was like, okay, Manny still has it. So in a worst case scenario, these guys can find spots for the future and continue their football career, even if they don't go to the NFL. But obviously, I'm still hoping that they're able to make it to the next level. Back to right now, ASU is trying to figure out what comes next at the receiver position. Jordyn Tyson is back, which was a huge return for the Sun Devils. Over 1,100 yards last year, and he missed the postseason. He did not get the Peach Bowl, and he did not get to play in the Big 12 championship game, unfortunately. But we are still going to have him for a season incoming that we should be very confident will have similar results. I understand it's another difficult schedule, but ASU is still really far ahead of the curve when comparing them to the rest of the Big 12 conference. And their out of conference really isn't that bad. Mississippi State could be interesting, especially going to Starkville. Texas State is a good program. They are coming to Tempe. Northern Arizona University is one of the universities in the state of Arizona. This should be a very competitive season. They're playing TCU. They're playing Baylor. Baylor being a team that I am very much anticipating a big season out of. You still have to play, oh God, who is it? Colorado, who just extended Dion. I think they're still going to be good. Texas Tech is also going to be a competitor. Iowa State. There's a lot of really good teams that ASU will be facing this year. So having Jordyn Tyson back was massive because Tyson connected with Sam Leavitt at such a high level last year. I mean, that was Leavitt's guy out the gate, was throwing the Jordyn Tyson. And by the end of the season, those two were so in sync that you would have argued it was one of the best quarterback receiver combinations in the entire nation. And I don't know if there was a better one in the Big 12. And that's saying something because there was a lot of good connections. Iowa State had two guys. Tedero McMillan was still playing at Arizona. Travis Hunter was playing receiver for Colorado. But the Sam Leavitt to Jordyn Tyson connection was great. And he was draft eligible. If he wanted to go out, he was a redshirt sophomore. He could have left. He decided to come back. He's healthy, and he's going to once again be one of the focal points, if not the focal point of this offense. Because remember, Cam Scadaboo is gone. So Tyson has that chance to be the guy on the offense. The offense could run through Jordyn Tyson. So certainly the air game, the passing game is going to go through Jordyn Tyson. The question is, who's stepping up opposite him? The room is basically brand new. You are bringing back Malik McClain, who we're going to talk about here in a second. Although McClain redshirted last year and was able to play in the postseason for the Big 12 championship game and the Peach Bowl, because postseason games do not count against your eligibility. So he was able to participate in those, and he looked like a deep threat. They brought in 3 transfers, all of whom have looked good so far, some better than others. Jalen Moss from Fresno State, Jaren Hamilton from Alabama, and Noble Johnson from Clemson. Those guys have slowly but surely looked like they're starting to get more confident, and Jalen Moss is competing for a starting role right now. Derek Eusebio is back from last year. He had a single catch that went over 60 yards and a touchdown from Trenton Bourget against U of A. That was pretty cool. And he's finding a way to stand out. You need to keep an eye out on Derek Eusebio. They've got a handful of freshmen that are coming in. Corey Butler Jr. is someone that has very quickly caught my eye out there. But when I look at the wide receiver position, like I said previously with tight end, like I have more questions with wide receiver and all the new faces than I do tight end with all of the new faces. There's just so much rotation going on with the receiver spot and with several other guys I didn't mention just now. But everyone has had their highs and lows. Like some guys have looked terrific, and then some guys it's like, it's there, but that wasn't a great rep, blah, blah, blah. Malik McClain has been by far the most consistent guy in the receiver room for me right now, and he's stretching the field and just looks ready to take on the number 2 role that he very easily could have had last year if things had lined up for him better at the start of the season, but that wasn't something that was entirely within his control. So when we get to the postseason and there is that opening because Jordyn Tyson is injured, he was able to make 2 big plays, 2 catches, both over 40 yards, including a touchdown he got from Cam Scadaboo against Texas. He's off to a great start in spring ball, and I am anticipating some big things out of him moving forward. Jalen Moss is in the thick of a competition for the starting role as a slot receiver. Derek Eusebio is pushing him very, very hard. Also keep an eye out for Zachariah Sample. He seems to be getting more confident. The health seems to be checking out for him, and he's going to be a threat for that slot role as well. So where I went into spring ball and I said, oh, it's Jalen Moss's job to lose, that seems to be incorrect. Right now, it is wide open, and there is no one that is guaranteed any kind of role in the wide receiver room outside of Jordyn Tyson being your X. There's going to be all sorts of opportunities for anybody to step up as the number 2 receiver opposite Tyson and to be the slot receiver for this team. And remember, the slot position is a very important opportunity for this Sun Devils team. Melkon Stovall had a very big role playing in the slot for ASU last year. So this is a great competition that's going on right now for the wide receiver positions. It's wide open, if you would. Very curious to see how that continues moving forward, but I do really like what's going on at wide receiver right now. If you guys are in the live, I appreciate you, as always, for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day and making the live shows one of your priorities. West Bezzy, I believe that's how we settled on it last time, is in the chat. Go Devils. Feels good to be following Sun Devils football again. You know it. Good to see you in here as always. You are one of my everydayers. If anyone else in the chat is here, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Leave a comment. Let's have some conversations. Let's flip over to the defensive side of the football. Now, the front 7 has been pretty concrete. The edge rushers, I don't think there's anything really that stands out to me. I said that Elijah O'Neal and Prince Dorba were going to be competing for the starting reps opposite Clayton Smith. That has been the case. The interior of the defensive line is CJ Fight and Jacob Rich-Kongaika until further notice for your starters. And then there's guys behind them that are competing as well. Zach Swanson has been standing out. Keep an eye out on Blazin Lonowong and Ramar Williams, redshirt freshman. He filled out. My goodness. He is carrying my legs around as his arms. Like, that is a thick, long defensive lineman. And he looks ready to step into that competition as well. So don't sleep on Ramar Williams as he continues getting some reps and he continues to stand out for the Sun Devils. Linebacker, not really too many surprises. Keyshawn Elliott obviously is one of the starters, and Jordan Crook has stepped up as the starter next to him, which was the case at the end of the season a year ago, as we saw Crook really assert himself ahead of some of the other guys like Zaris Fiaseu and just hold on to that spot. So he's starting spring ball, holding on to that spot. Not really too much of a surprise, and he played very well down the stretch. Now, with that being said, Zaris has looked good. Tate Romney's back on the field. I'm very happy to see him. Crew Jackson is still with the team. I know we have not seen him in 2 years, but maybe this is the year that Crew finally gets onto the field. Linebacker, I do feel like we've got this we've got this pretty much figured out. But there's still going to be plenty of rotation in there. And then you've got the secondary. Now, safety, we know what it is. We know it's Miles, and we know it's Xavion. There's no questioning. Miles, and even Kenny Dillingham has said, Miles Rouser is one of our starting safeties. Xavion Alford is another one of our safeties. So there's no there's no debating, questioning what's going on there. There is some depth that will be competing for the safety spot, but we know what that is. For anyone joining in the live right now, I appreciate you guys so much. Drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Any questions you might have, and let's have a conversation. The corner position. Whew, that's a fun one. That's a really fun competition right now. We do know the starting two boundary guys. It's Javen Robinson, and it is Keith Abney Jr. There's really not much that anyone can do to usurp those guys, especially as they continue to play at a high level and practice at a high level. ASU has their top two guys figured out. Now, beyond them, I've said before that I think there are two more incredibly important spots in the corner room. The first one is the nickel corner. That's basically a starting position in football today, in the pros and in college. You are starting a guy in the slot, in the nickel, whichever one you prefer to call it, pretty much every game. Like, you see a lot of 4-2-5 sets, right? Or 3-3-5 sets, where you're kind of getting away from your traditional 3-4 lineups and your 4-3 lineups defensively, and you're starting 5 defensive backs. It's I think it's a good thing, honestly, because you just have so many high octane passing attacks that are going on in football now, that having those defensive backs that can start more than just your top two guys is pivotal for your team. Now, let's look at last year. The slot role, the nickel role, was supposed to be manned by Cole Martin. He was like one of the premier transfers from the 2024 cycle. He was a former 4-star. I think he was a 4-star transfer too when he was a Valley kid. He unfortunately was dealing with injuries, so he didn't get on the field much before his season was shut down. And then he transferred to UCLA following his father, who was now with that coaching staff. While he was injured, Shamari Simmons took over the nickel role because Miles Rouser and Xavion Alford were so good that Simmons moved from his safety spot to the nickel. Now, it became a very, very intriguing role that he would go to take on for the team. You end up seeing Shamari not just being good in coverage, but an elite run defender in every sense of the word. He was elite. He set the edge. He was a great tackler. And for a defensive line that was forcing running backs to the boundary, Shamari chased those guys down. He was playing great football. So losing him was a huge blow to this defense. It's one of the biggest losses that the Sun Devils will be facing this year after Cam Scadaboo. I would probably tell you that is your second biggest player that you will have to replace. And there's other very important guys who are gone too, but the Shamari Simmons role, that's going to be pivotal to try and figure out what happens next there. There's going to be a lot of competition, and we've seen a lot of competition, but the thing that's so interesting to me, the thing that really gets my attention is there's two different kinds of players who are competing for the nickel role. You have guys who are true nickel corners and play full-time corner. And then you've got those flex safeties, the third safety that plays near the line of scrimmage, has the coverage skills, maybe not as good as the nickel, the true nickel guy, but they are able to do a lot more. That's closer to what Shamari Simmons was last year for the team, is that third safety and being able to do a little bit of everything, and especially just being a reliable tackler. What is ASU going to prioritize this upcoming season for that nickel role? Are they looking for another Shamari Simmons, or are they looking for someone who played a lot closer to Jack Jones or Jordan Clark a handful of years ago, where those guys were much more natural nickel corners? it's going to be a very intriguing situation. And ASU has not been shy through spring ball so far about rotating how they want that to look. Kendrick Breedlove, who is, to me, in every sense of the word, a nickel corner. I've seen some people call him a safety, and I do not agree with that. I think that he's a nickel guy. I think that there's great coverage skills, and he just looks very comfortable in that spot that he's manned over the last several years with Purdue before transferring here. So you've got more of a traditional nickel corner that plays in there. But then they've been having Montana Warren come down and play. If you listen to the podcast, you know that this is a show that loves Montana Warren. He plays safety. In fact, in the first half of the Peach Bowl against Texas, he lined up in the Shamari Simmons role because Shamari was suspended for the first half of the game for a previous targeting penalty in the Big 12 championship game. He did it in the second half, so he had to miss the first half against Texas. I have thoughts. It is what it is. But Montana got that start in the spot. First drive, he got beat like a drum on a big touchdown. After that, dead silence. You did not hear a peep out of that offense. And Montana Warren was a huge reason for that. He was playing very sound football. And it felt like he just needed to get the jitters out of him. Like, you're in a starting role for the first time in your collegiate career. It's not special teams, it's defensive snaps. And you also are in the biggest environment that you've ever seen in your collegiate career, in your football career, going back to high school, Pop Warner, wherever. He played high school football in Texas. He knows how big Friday Night Lights are. But what he had faced in the Peach Bowl, oddly enough, against like the Texas team in college, that was a huge spotlight. So yeah, he probably had a little bit of jitters on that first drive. And then after that, he settled in. Now, he's also going to have a really, really good opportunity to win that role. And he will be much closer to the role that Shamari Simmons played last year. There's other guys who will compete. I think Adrian Wilson is going to get some opportunities as well. He has a history of playing slot corner. He is closer to a safety. Sounds like a Shamari Simmons kind of role. There's going to be all sorts of guys that will compete for that spot. Right now, I feel like it's a two-man race between Kendrick and between Montana. We'll see how that goes because, again, I do think we're going to see a lot of Adrian Wilson as things progress. But that's a very interesting spot. Real quick, if you are in the comments, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions, let me know. Lord Knows Media is in here. What's up, Rich Homie Shaw? Keep up the great work. I appreciate you. You're in here all the time. Probably one of my everydayers. So shout out to you. Thanks for tuning in as always. The second role that I said was very important in the secondary. We started off with that slot role. The second role is the number 3 corner. Richie, how are those different? They're different because that nickel guy is specifically locked into nickel corner duties. You're not asking him to really bounce around anywhere else. Stay on the boundary, be a good run defender, and cover the underneath. Now, the corner 3 role is much closer to I wouldn't call it a starting role, but it's much closer to that traditional corner role as a boundary guy. And last year, that was LT Welch for Arizona State. Now, he's no longer with the program. It's a spot that is going to be incredibly important for the Sun Devils because in the second half of last year, LT was terrific in that spot. And he became someone that was so pivotal to the secondary success that when you lost him, it was a big blow. And I don't think ASU secondary was the same when Welch was off of the team. Despite how good Javen Robinson and Keith Abney and Shamari Simmons were playing, and the safety tandem of Miles Ghost Rouser and Xavion Alford was good too. But losing Welch was something I think was very overlooked in terms of how important it was and how big of a blow it was when he was off the team. So this is a massive opportunity for someone to step in and play that corner 3 role because I need my slot guy, my nickel guy, to inherit that full time. So if that's Kendrick Breedlove, I need him to be my nickel full time. I don't want to bounce him anywhere else. I want him in that slot, in the position, and say, this is your job. Worry only about your job. I want someone else to take on the corner 3 role. The guy who does come in and substitute for Jayden or Keith when they need to get them off the field, or in your dime packages. You know that you've got that third corner and you can keep your slot in the slot. I think that there is currently 2 head runners for this nickel spot right now. The first one is Nyland Green. Green transferring in from Purdue. He followed Kendrick over here. For what it's worth, he's a former 5-star who started his collegiate career at Georgia. But he has slowly figured it out. And last year was a good year for him with the Boilermakers. And you're hoping that that's going to be the trajectory for him. And he's going to build off of a good year, and he's going to become a good to great player for ASU. At worst, above average, and I think he's already at that point. But he's got so many snaps under his belt and so many starts and playing time during his collegiate career. I believe he's got 4 years. He might even have 5 years. That he's got a much higher leg up in the competition between some of the other guys. And a lot of the other guys are really, really young guys. Majority of them are redshirt freshmen. You know who doesn't look like a redshirt freshman? That was Rodney Bimage Jr. This is a Rodney Bimage Jr. fan account at this point in time because he looks ready to start. Over Keith, over Jayden, he looks ready to be a day 1, week 1 starter for the Sun Devils right now. He is playing as good as anyone in camp at any position, on any side of the ball, on any part of the depth chart, first team, second team, third team, scout, whatever. He is playing as well as anyone else. He is consistently having great coverage, nice and sticky, breaking up the football, and intercepting the ball. He's all over it. This was also a guy that last year at this point in time for spring ball, I highlighted as like hey, we need to keep an eye out on this kid because he's playing really good football right now. Fall practice last year, I was still keeping an eye out on him, and unfortunately, we didn't get to see him last year. He had the redshirt season. He's picking up right where he left off, and with a year of coaching under his belt from defensive backs coach Brian Carrington and defensive coordinator Brian Ward, he is growing more consistent in that spot. In fact, you asked me how good he's been doing. He's getting first-team reps right now. I am not exaggerating. He is getting first-team reps right now. That's how well he has been performing. And it has been incredibly difficult to get him off the field. He is truly looking and becoming a very special player for the Sun Devils. And if Keith Abney and Javen Robinson decide to declare for the 2026 NFL draft, because both of them are eligible. Keith is a true junior. I believe Javen is a redshirt junior. He may be a true junior too. I want to say he's got a redshirt. They can both leave. And if they have another strong season, there's a good chance they leave because having good defensive backs is one of the most important things that you can do and possess at the pro level. And those guys are both really good defensive backs. Keith Abney has really just turned into something very, very special for the Sun Devils. Sorry to keep saying special over and over again. Javen Robinson, first year after transferring from Washington State, he was incredibly, incredibly comfortable for a defense that he was familiar with because Brian Ward was previously his defensive coordinator and recruited him. So they looked good. But as close to a guaranteed a starting spot as they have, they are going to be looking over their shoulder because of Rodney Bimage. He will be, at worst, your number 4 corner, excluding the nickel spot. I consider that its own position. At worst, he's number 4, behind Robinson, Abney, and potentially Nyland Green. Although some of the other redshirt freshmen have looked pretty good as well. That was my backup keyboard that decided to fall over and scare my dog. What was I saying? Some of the other redshirt freshmen have looked good. Tony Lewis in Cuba, a guy who also looked good last spring. He looks as good right now. Chris Johnson Jr. has been getting on the field. Plas Johnson has been getting on the field. They are competing right now, and they are all gunning for that corner 3 spot. But not Keith Abney. Rodney Bimage has such a firm grip on that spot. It's just so much fun to watch. He has been maybe my favorite player to watch in camp. It's him or it's AJ Ia. Those guys have definitely been like when I get to camp, I'm going to follow those position groups. I'm going to go to where the tight ends are playing, and I'm going to go to where the defensive backs are playing, and I'm going to watch them play. And when one-on-ones come up, I'm shutting the world off. Like, I love the people that are there. Leave me alone for the next 10 minutes. I'm watching one-on-ones. I might as well have the rest of the world tuned out. I don't want anything going on. My grandma could call me, Grandma, I love you. I'm busy. I'm watching one-on-ones. I'm watching not Keith Abney. I keep doing this. I love Keith Abney, if you can't tell. I want to watch Rodney Bimage lining up on Noble Johnson and see what happens. I want to see Jordan Crook and AJ Ia going up against each other. And hopefully he's done running over Walter Cronkite students. Props to that girl that was able to shrug it off. If I got run over by AJ Ia, I think I would have a huge indent on the ground of my body that they could use as a chalk outline. And it might even look like something from Scooby-Doo where they're running through the wall and you've got the exact posture of them like jumping through it. I think that's what would have happened if AJ Ia ran me over. But props to her for getting right up from it. Those two, though, Bimage and Ia, stealing the show for me right now. One last position I want to talk about before we kind of wrap this bad boy up. Keep an eye out on running back. Kanye Udoh and Kyson Brown. 1A, 1B. I've said it a million times on this show, and that's been the case. Raleek Brown is getting a lot of reps with first team. A noticeable amount of reps. He looks healthy. And a healthy Raleek Brown, I have said, should be the main option in the passing game for this team. However, a healthy Raleek Brown, a former 5-star kid who showed potential at USC before he's just been dealing with injuries the last couple of years. He has it. It's not gone. He still looks explosive. He still is a great pass catcher. And if he is 100% healthy, and if he is 100% confident and in a great mind space, yeah, we can't sleep on Raleek Brown for being a potential starter on this team. Running back 1, I'm so deadly serious. Kanye has looked awesome. Kyson has looked awesome. Raleek has looked awesome. Great problem to have right now. Quite the hydra of a backfield. But don't be surprised if I continue to let you know, hey, Raleek Brown is getting first team reps today. Hey, Raleek Brown is on the field a lot for the passing down opportunities. Hey, Raleek Brown is getting a lot of carries on running downs. Do not be surprised if that's something that I repetitively tell you, because they love Raleek and they are getting him on the field. Very, very interesting. I lied. There's one more spot as we wrap this up. Offensive line, there are 2 open positions right now. Left guard, which we know is completely wide open for just about anyone to snag right now. There's a handful of guys that I think should be able to seize that role for the team. I can't remember his last name. Jametto. I'm going to have to look it up here. Is it a Big Bow? I don't think that's right. I'm pulling it up. Sorry. Yeah, I was right. Jametto Bigbo feels like the guy at the moment to be the starting left guard. Sean Naa is getting a lot of opportunities. He's on first team a lot as well. He is getting a lot of first team reps. You need to keep an eye out on him. But Jametto does feel like probably the day 1 starter. And then at right tackle, Max Yoniker is not practicing right now. He's dealing with injury. I think in the 3 years he's been here, he's never played spring ball. He was out last year for sure, and I don't think he played in his first year in 2023. This is a good opportunity for someone to advertise themselves as the future. Jalen Clem is getting those reps at right tackle right now. I've mentioned before that Jalen Clem will push Josh Atkins as the starting left tackle. It's not a surprise to me that Clem is finding his way onto the field. And he's got interior experience as well. When he was with the Washington Huskies in 2023, he was playing inside at guard. He will also have an opportunity to be the starting left guard. And if ASU is to go with the start your best 5 strategy when they look at the offensive line, I don't know if you can keep Clem off the field. That's how well he's been playing. Ben Coleman, who was the starting left guard last year, is moving to center. He looks very comfortable at center. I'm very happy with what I've seen from him. Hopefully that continues to be the case and he continues to grow and become a very good center. And then his NFL prospects get better because he's got left guard and center experience. They will love to see that. All right, let's wrap this up. Just one final point that I want to share with you guys is the youngsters on this team. They're looking good. One of the questions that Kenny Dillingham will have to answer this year, it's his 3rd year with the program. That means he has 3 recruiting classes under his belt, 23, 24, 25. By your 3rd season as a head coach and at a college football program, this is when we start seeing the recruits take the field. And ASU has been transfer heavy over their first 2 seasons. Majority of their starters have been transfers over the 2 years that Dillingham has been here. And now we're starting to see his recruits find the football field. I mean, starters that I can think of off the top of my head, Kyson Brown was one of his recruits. Keith Abney was one of his recruits. CJ Fight was one of his recruits. He is showing that the guys that he brought in 2023 are finding the field. The 2024 recruits, we didn't get to see too much of them last year, but Jayden Fortier, I already mentioned he's standing out and he could be in line for a spot. Champ Westbrook's, obviously big fan of him on the show and friend of the podcast. He can play all 5 spots. There is an opening at right tackle for now and left guard. Champ is going to get his opportunity there as well. And that's also someone that Kenny recruited. Terrell Kim is going to get some chances. Terrell Kim dropped over 40 pounds to be able to potentially play guard for the team this year. So we're hopefully going to see more of last year's recruiting class. Rodney Bimmage, Tony Lewis, and Cuba. Don't forget about Kyan McDonald either, one of the safeties for the team who could be competing for that Shamari Simmons role. Montana Warren, speaking of which, he was also recruited by Kenny Dillingham. He is possibly looking at a starting role this year. Then we're going to see this year's class. AJ Ia already looks like he's ready to start for this team. And Cam Dyer, unfortunately, is probably out for the season. I would imagine he takes a red shirt, but he will be competing for a starting quarterback role when Sam Leavitt eventually declares, whether that is next year or down the road. Keep an eye out on him. Corey Butler Jr., someone I mentioned earlier at wide receiver. This is the year where we're going to find out, hey, are you a good recruiter that can coach these guys, or are you just a recruiter? Are you one of the top tier guys, or are you closer to a Kevin Sumlin kind of guy? You can bring guys in, but you can't coach them. It doesn't matter. We're going to find out this year how those youngsters are able to step into roles. The redshirt sophomores, the redshirt freshmen, the true freshmen, all of them. We're going to find out how they look. And true juniors too. There's lots of guys on this roster that could find starting roles now that the transfers have not become nearly as big of a priority for ASU. They brought in over 40 transfers in 2023 and 2024 combined. They had less than 15 this year. In fact, they barely scraped double digits. I want to say they had 11, maybe 12 guys that they brought in the transfer portal because of how confident they are in the younger guys. They're looking good in spring ball so far. We will continue to pay extra attention to the younger guys, more than the veterans and the graduate players, because we know what they are. I love Xavier Alford, another friend of the podcast. I know what he is. I don't need to watch Xavier Alford as much as I need to watch Kyan McDonald. I have seen more than enough of Max Yoniker. This is his third season with the program. You know who I want to see? I want to see Champ Westbrooks on the field. I want to see some of the other offensive linemen that they've recruited get onto the field. I know what I have with Jordyn Tyson, and I'm aware of what's going on with the transfers, but how are some of the younger receivers going to look? I mentioned Corey Butler, but Derek Eusebio has found a way to step up through training camp so far. There's a lot of great competition on this team, and a lot of the young players who have been here since the start of the Kenny Dillingham era and who are coming into this program for the first time are making serious noise. And that should be something that gets a lot of fans excited, because the future of this program is built in your recruiting. And they're doing an awesome job right now, showing that these recruits that they've been bringing in, the 3 stars, that where's your 4 stars, where's your 5 stars, and they're playing pretty well. They look just as good as some of those guys. You could have told me Rodney Bimage was a 4-star guy, I would have believed you. He is playing very much better than his 3-star billing. There's so many guys that were given lower recruiting status, but you get them to a program that knows how to develop them, and at a program that they want to be at, and they buy in, and they're playing good football. So this is a big year. This is a big, big year for the young players, and certainly for Kenny Dillingham to prove that he can coach those guys up. Very, very exciting. Everyone that tuned in to the live, I appreciate you guys as always. Drop a comment. Let me know what you want to talk about moving forward. This has been a live edition of Locked On Sun Devils. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in, not just to the lives, but for the podcast each and every day, and making Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day. Shout out especially to those everydayers who are here every day. If you missed the live, don't worry. If you missed this one or previous ones, you can rewatch them on YouTube whenever you want, and they are uploaded in an audio form to wherever you're getting your podcasts. If that's Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, or anywhere else, we're free and available on all platforms. We are live every Sunday, time to be determined, anytime between 3 and 5 o'clock, hopefully earlier in the afternoon. We'll catch you guys up on everything. I will keep you posted on spring ball for free, no paywall, because we're free and available on all platforms. I'll tell you everything I get to experience, everything I'm hearing, and so much more. This is going to be a busy week. Player interviews are coming up around the corner, and I am sitting down very soon with Locked On's recruiting guy. And we're going to talk about a huge month ahead of us for April and why ASU might be redefining their program with this upcoming recruiting month. So I appreciate you guys as always. Thanks for tuning in. Shout out my everydayers who are here every day. All that good stuff. Follow me on Twitter, RichieBrads36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. I'll catch you guys next time. And until then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun.